Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarottam pravaram muninam Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi. So in the last class, we were almost in the last sutra of the third chapter, the Vibhuti-pada, as we have already seen that the last few sutras of Vibhuti-pada actually starts the introduction of the Kaivalya-pada. Kaivalya-pada, Kaivalya, the word Kaivalya is very significant. The word Kaivalya came from Kevala. Kevala means only. It's because of ignorance, the Purusha thinks itself to be a part of the Prakriti, identified with the Prakriti. The Purusha sees its reflection in the nature and takes the reflection to be real. And that's the cause of ignorance. And when the liberation happens, when the Purusha realizes that he is not the reflection, that the Purusha has nothing to do with Prakriti. From when the ignorance started, it had the notion that it always needs the Prakriti as a crutch, as if Purusha is handicapped. It cannot travel by its own. It needs the crutch of Prakriti. For the first time, it realizes that there is no need for the support of Prakriti. It exists by its own right. It's beyond all limitations. It's the ever perfect conscious principle. Realizing that it separates from the Prakriti. And that's what is the liberation. Why it has been mentioned as Kaivalya, liberation as Kaivalya. Now, for the first time, the Purusha realizes that he only, the Kevala means only, he alone, he only exists without his association with Prakriti by its own right. So this disidentification speaks of the onlyness. That's the Kevala. That's why the word Kaivalya has been used to describe liberation. Now this Kaivalya, it is attained. How it is attained? As an introduction in the last sutra of the third chapter, the sutra which we left out in the last class, previous class, we couldn't start the discussion on that sutra. So that's the sutra which we will take as an introduction to the entire Kaivalya Pada, the fourth chapter. So what's the 55th sutra of the third chapter, what it speaks? It's a very interesting sutra, very nicely. It has described the state of liberation. What? Sattva Purushayo Shuddhi Samye Kaivalyam iti. Sattva. Here the Sattva speaks of the pure intellect. The intellect which is bereft of all impurities. the Bodhisattva, which is established in the contemplation, in the awareness that he is actually the conscious principle, the Purusha. But very interesting, when I am established in the idea that I am the conscious principle, who is saying it? It's the mind. Though the mind has purified itself from all the turgidities, it's no more in any way contaminated by the sunset pleasures of the world, by any sort of worldliness. It has disassociated itself from all the entangles of the material world. But at the same time, we find still the mind exists to have that idea that I am the Purusha. So this Sattva, he speaks of that Buddhi Sattva, that pure intellect, which is bereft of all association, of all our entanglements, raga, dvesha, bhinivesha, attachments, hatred, and tremendous attachment for life. It has came out of it, but still it exists as the mind, as a pure mind. But Sattva and the Purusha is of course pure. So when both these pure principles I take, they are apparently the same. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Shuddha Buddhi, Shuddha Atma, Ek. The pure Atman and the pure intellect, the pure Buddhi Sattva, both are same. How can it be same? So that's when it happens. Know it for certain that results in liberation. So what actually it is speaking of? Now the Buddhi Sattva is never the Purusha. Then why it has been spoken of here that both resemble? Yes, they are not the same, but their characteristic is almost the same. When the Buddhi is bereft of all its association with the so-called phenomenal existence, it is as if resembling the Purusha. Why it is saying? That there are certain aspects which are same for the Sattva as well as for the Purusha. What is the aspect? The Purusha, though because of ignorance, it always appears that it is in association with Prakriti, but in reality, it is never in association with the Prakriti. Just the way when the sun gets reflected on the waves of the ocean, the one sun appears as many. Each and every wave has the reflection of the sun. Not only that, as per the shape of the wave, the reflection of the sun may appear to be elliptical, may appear to be deformed. So all this actually in no way affects the real sun. The real sun is always unaffected. It's only the reflection which appears as many. If I take the reflection to be real, then I am deluded. I think as if Purusha is going through all those transformations, but it is never actually happening. So the Purusha is always pure. Now, when the mind becomes pure, what happens? Whatever may be our spiritual practices, whether you are a devotee or you are a jnani, the basic thing which happens is we develop a new mental module through our sadhana, through our spiritual practice. What's that? If I am a bhakta, if I am a devotee, I constantly think this worldly existence is ephemeral. It's not going to be permanent. It's not going to continue for eternity. It is just a flow. The real me, which is the spirit, is in eternal association with the divine, with God, which is also spirit. As has been very nicely said in the Bible by Jesus, worship the spirit by the spirit. It's not that when I am worshiping God, a real devotee never thinks himself to be this limited psychophysical existence. He or she is convinced of the fact that the real essence of his being is eternal. And the Lord is eternal. It is the association of this eternal essence of my being with the Lord. That's what the devotee is constantly aware of. So here also we find what is happening even for a devotee constantly through his meditation, through his day-to-day life, through his constant awareness of his association with the divine. A devotee is constantly negating the limited self, constantly negating the limited self. The idea which is behind all our activities. Unless and until I feel myself a limited psychophysical existence, the question of the motivation never comes. All our motivations at last can be boiled down to three things. Why we get motivated? Either we are attached to certain thing, raga, or we are repelled by something, dvesha. Is either attachment or hatred. And another thing is abhinivesha, our tremendous clinging to life, which indirectly speaks of fear of death. That's why that most of all this medical science, yoga, the so-called yoga, not the yoga as the meditation, science of meditation, yoga as the way the world knows it. Those physical acrobats, all the asanas, pranayamas for therapeutic purpose, all these is actually the expression of abhisneha, tremendous clinging to life, so that I can avert the thing which I don't want, that is death. I can never avert. I can just go on delaying it. I can try to have a more healthy life. So that's what we are doing. You will find that all the motivations at last ends up to this raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. From where these three afflictions come, in our Yoga Sutra, they have been spoken of as afflictions, klesha. Behind that is the sense of asmita, that I am this psychophysical existence. My identity has got established, has got totally identified with this. If it is nourished, I am nourished. Actually, for me, there is no need for nourishment. The real me, the conscious principle, is beyond all the limitations because it needs nothing for its existence. It exists by its own right. But when I get attached with the psychophysical existence and take this to be the reality, then the question of nourishing it comes. Then the question of fear from the things which is going to harm it comes. The question of clinging to life comes. So all this comes from asmita. This asmita is linked with raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. You will find that asmita again is because of ignorance, avidya. So these five are the kleshas. From avidya comes asmita, from asmita comes raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. In our day-to-day life, as per our so-called default mode of existence in this phenomenal world, all our motivations are because of this raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, which emanates from that little sense of asmita, that ego. Now, when you think that I am a devotee of God, the real me in essence is eternal, the Lord is eternal, my association with the Lord is something which is never going to end, it is permanent. This existence as a psychophysical being is something, a flow, a temporal, it's just a passing phase. This idea is negating your existence, which is motivated by that limited ego, asmita. And the same thing happens with a jnani. Constantly one who is meditating that I am Brahma, that aham brahmasmi, I am the Brahman. The one who is meditating, he's also doing the same thing. He's also constantly negating his limited existence, his existence which speaks of locality, constantly negating. Through this negation, what happens? This one mental module, which through your sadhana you're developing, it negates all other mental modules, because this is opposing all the other mental modules. It's like a scarecrow. Just when you have a scarecrow, that no other birds can come. All the birds are like the various mental modules which are hooked to your asmita, which are clogged to your asmita. And this is the one which is acting as a scarecrow for all. They start falling off. They all start falling off. Now, just you take this, when all this mental modules has fallen off because of your constant awareness of the fact that you are the conscious principle. This mental module, which is the product of your sadhana, of your meditation, it has now become pure. At the beginning, though I meditate, I find that sometimes my mind is very much uplifted, at other times the desires come back. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that when we are a novice in our spiritual journey, we are like an ordinary housefly. Sometimes we sit in, sometimes we are sitting in the nectar, we are sipping in the nectar, and sometimes we are sipping in the filth, just like a housefly. The housefly has to become the honeybee. It only sits on nectar, never sits on filth. So this Bodhisattva speaks of transformation into the honeybee, where your mind is now pure. Now take this mind, how it resembles the self. The self is bereft of all mental modules. All the mental modules in no way can really come in association with the Purusha. It's always uncontaminated. And this Bodhisattva, this mental module, when it has become purified, when all the drossness has fallen off, it is also bereft of all mental modules. When this has happened, as if both are same, as per their association with the mental modules are concerned, the conscious principle as well as this one mental module, know it for certain, this will lead to that's liberation. This one mental module is also bound to fall off at last. Why? When you are established in that one mental module, all has fallen off. From that comes para vairagya, supreme renunciation, where you are in no way inclined to remain in that state of existence where the buddhi is still remaining. The tremendous renunciation comes when that last mental module also falls off. After cleansing the mind from all mental modules, this one mental module by itself cannot stay. There are various reasons. You will find that even in the Buddhist literature, when Buddha went to the realization, it is mentioned that what happened as his mind is bereft of all the immediate concerns, all the biases, all the attachments. The mind now starts encompassing. When we are extremely attached, our mind becomes narrowed. We cannot have a broad perspective, and we cannot build on that broad perspective. Our life cannot build. We are narrowed down. Just see when the dog is enjoying its meal, how much tremendously focused it is. Same with us. So the more we are entangled in the senses, our mind is very much narrowed down. We are just myopic, short-sighted. Take that existence, that with what I am involved, that to be the be-all and end-all of my existence. I don't have the capacity to look beyond that what is awaiting me. We all know that death is awaiting. Our sense pleasures are like the rabbit being chased by the predator. At last, hides its face in a hole. And when it hides its face in the hole, it cannot see the predator and it thinks I am safe. All the sensate pleasures of the world is like hiding our face into the hole, not allowing us to see what's there waiting for me. That the death is the ultimate thing which is going to, we are all going to meet, which is going to happen. All our association with the worldly existence, whether it's our wealth, whether it is our relations, is going to end. But when we are involved with the senses, this common fact doesn't. This is the most common sense. It needs a very common sense to realize this. But because of a tremendous attachment, it never dawns in our mind. We are quite happy with it. But when your mind is bereft of all those associations, it now broadens. It so broadens that you can even now remember the past lives. That's why we will find when Buddha, just before entering into the realization, became Jatismara. All the past lives that it came to his mind. From that, the Jataka stories came. So when that that because of that supreme renunciation, when the jati smaratva comes, you see that so many lives, what I was doing, nothing. What I was doing, took this world to be real, I just gave a headlong dive into it, thought this family, children, this is the be all and end all of existence. And suddenly we realized the old age came and the world has started forgetting me, getting apart from me. I try to cleanse the world doesn't bother about it. And at last, there is death waiting for me. I have to leave. As Swami Vivekananda used to say, the nature at certain point of time gives us in abundance. And we are so happy. Just when you are a young person with your intellect, with your strong physique, with your degrees, the work, job, relations, as if the world is there waiting for you with open hands. The nature is, that's the way the nature is. That's how the nature is. It will give you in abundance at certain point of time. But know it for certain, it will snatch away everything at certain point of time. And all our suffering comes when I say I won't give. But the nature is powerful, extremely powerful. I have to give. So that's the thing we can see, that's what's happening for lives together. I was elated with all the so-called achievements of life, and the time came, everything was taken away. What's the, after all, ultimate goal of that type of existence? Nothing. From this, the para vairagya comes. Enough of this limited existence. Even my limited existence with the mind, that's not required because I am the conscious principle. And then that para vairagya, it is very difficult to understand how to get rid of the idea, even that idea that I am the conscious principle. I need the mind to think I am conscious principle. That's what we think in the present state of existence. Just the way it is almost impossible to explain a small child that there is a higher life beyond the toys and chocolates. It's impossible to explain. For the child, that is his world. If you say a scientist enjoys in the laboratory doing the research, or through the telescope while watching the galaxies, that makes no sense to the child. How can there be happiness in all those bland, boring things? For the child, it's the chocolates, the toys, the be-all and end-all of existence. For us, the mind is the ultimate toy. With that which we have, we need. We cannot think of existence. Just the child who thought that the toys and the chocolates are the be-all and end-all of his existence. When the child grows up, he laughs at himself. Oh, as a small child, how foolish I was. Similarly, it's very difficult to understand in the present state of existence that how I can even give up that one mental module. We can easily understand that we can purify our mind. But at last, the idea is, I will be there with that one mental module. All the fight between the Gyanis and Bhaktas are there. All this bhakti is actually clinging to that ultimate module. They cannot think. It's a terrifying thing that how can I leave that? But we forget. Those who are terrified are all the childs. We are all here. When you go to that state, most probably then that para vairagya is bound to come. And when that comes, this ultimate mental module also falls off, now leading you to Kaivalya. The mind is no more there. Shankaracharya gives a very nice example that how when this Bodhisattva, Buddhisattva and Purusha, when they resemble, when both have become as if totally bereft of all other mental modules, then at last this Bodhisattva also has to fall off. In the olden days, the way of purifying water in the village, they will get the water from the pond. It's full of turgidity, full of microbes. You will get infected. So how to get rid of all this bacteria, how to get rid of all the impurities? They used to add a little camphor. The camphor will first clear the water. The water will become transparent. And at last you will find the camphor itself is not there. It also has totally merged in the the clean water. You cannot find the camphor. So Shankaracharya in his commentary is saying that this buddhi sattva, the pure mind, after cleansing the mind, itself vanishes. It's no more there. And that leads you to that state of kaivalya, where as the conscious principle, you are now bereft of Prakriti. There is no need for any crutch. You exist by your own right. Actually, you always existed by your own right. It was just the ignorance which made you feel that my association with the Prakriti is necessary for my existence. This ignorance falls off. You find it was all a dream. You are, you were, you are, you will be. That conscious principle bereft of Prakriti. So that's the state of Kaivalya. So you will find how nicely the words have been arranged, just with a simple, just such a small sutra, but it speaks a lot. That's the meaning of the sutras. They're all the huge ideas, profound ideas are encoded on those few words. So this few words speaks a lot. Sattva, Purushaya, Shuddha, Shuddhi, Samye. Samye means when it becomes resembles. Samata, it resembles. When the Sattva, the Buddhi Sattva and the Purusha, because of the purification, they appear to be same. Know for certain that will lead to the Kaivalya Miti. So the Yoga Sutra, when we just proceed almost in the last sutras, in the 4th chapter, they will mention very nicely just the way when the rain falls on the top of the mountain, it cannot stay there. It has to fall off. When you reach the state of the ultimate purification, all the factors which conglomerated to give you that sense of identity, all the natures of components which conglomerated, just like the raindrop falling off from the top of the mountain in all directions, the mind starts falling off. All the things which conglomerated, it starts falling off to render you free. The mind starts just simply falling off. Very nicely, the word which has been used in the Yoga Sutra, as we study, we will find prasava and pratiprasava. Prasava means evolution, to give birth. The nature first gave birth to us as a psychophysical existence. Now it is pratiprasava, involution. All the factors which resulted in the evolution of the psychophysical existence, they start falling off. It's just like let go. It's a let go. It falls off, rendering you the freedom. All the clinging to this phenomenal existence starts falling off. So with that, the 3rd chapter ends by actually this sutra is an introduction to the next chapter. So now we will enter into the 4th chapter, the last chapter of the Yoga Sutra. So first it starts with a mantra, which you may feel it has nothing to do with Kaivalya. But very interesting why these sutras have been described at the very beginning of the 4th sutra. That it again speaks of the siddhis. Why it starts with that? The reason is, even in the present day, we will find many people are deluded. That by drugs, there can be the alteration of your consciousness, giving you a feeling that it is something which resembles the state of illumination. Many have been deluded by that. Many. Especially for the hippie movement and all, we find that the drug addiction was somehow encouraged because it gave them a sense of alteration of the consciousness. And they thought that it's an easy way to get illumined. The first mantra of the Kaivalya, first sutra of the Kaivalya Pada, you will find is a warning to that. Aushadhi, Janma, some by birth. I found a book, very interesting book, written by a very, very well-known author. His own child is having some, he made some accident, and after that, he had some mental aberrations. The mind was not working properly. And now, we find in that book, he's saying that he's comparing Ramakrishna and Raman Maharshi with his own child, that he has become like God. Why? He has no attachment. He has developed detachment. So, and then with the help of the psychology, this mind of such a person who has become something like not a normal person. A normal person means the way we think is normal, that he is a bit different from all others. Now we study the psychology of that person, and we say that the spiritual illumination happened because somehow that mind of Ramakrishna or of Ramana Maharshi somehow got transformed, just the way the mind of this person who met an accident has got transformed. With all the sadhana, at last it is a deranged mind. So again, we will be making a mistake. It's not a deranged mind. I will give a very common example. You will understand it. In psychology, there is a syndrome. Someone will develop that syndrome. It's called Capgras syndrome. Capgras. What happens? Suddenly one day, a person is seeing his mother may say, "You look like my mother, but you are not my mother. You're an imposter. Somehow you have entered into my life, maybe to exploit me." And the mother will be horrified. What has happened to my child? This Capgras syndrome, it is something related to schizophrenia and some other mental conditions. This person will think the other person is an imposter. Seeing his own house will feel, it looks like my house, but it is not my house. Now, in the psychology behind it is very complicated, but in a simple way to explain it to a lay person, what has happened because of some disease or for some accident, our brain is highly wired. It is the wiring of the brain which gives us the reality. When I see my house, I feel my house, my emotion gets involved. What happens? There are some center of perception in the brain. Those centers of perceptions are wired with the center of emotion. We have emotions. Those emotions are wired with the centers of perceptions. So when I see my mother, the perception of my mother is linked with the emotion. Immediately I feel my mother. The emotion wells up. Now suppose because of accident, that wiring gets disrupted. Your center of emotion is disrupted from your center of perception. So you see, but the emotion is not working. And immediately that feeling comes, it's not mine. Somewhere, someone is, these persons are like an imposter has came to my life. This building looks like my own house, but it is not my house. So a type of as if a detachment has developed. And now if you say a realized soul is also the same, for whom the same detachment has came through all his sadhana, we'll be doing a big mistake. Why will we be doing a big mistake? For a person who is having a Capgras syndrome, because of some accident or something, the detachment of the emotion center with the perception center has happened. That is making him behave in particular way, as if there is no attachment to the things. But know it for certain, again, when if his disease is cured, or if he is born again with a normal mind, all his attachments will be back. This detachment was an accident. It's not from that conviction that I am the self. So when you study the psychology, it looks same. For a realized soul also this detachment has happened. But behind that, what has detached? The conviction that I am not the body, not the mind, not the senses. This is the conviction which apparently both the brains are looking same. So just seeing the way the brain works, you say both are same. We will be committing a big mistake. So by birth, we may be having some abnormalities that doesn't speak that I am a realized soul. Because of some herbs or drugs, I may have temporarily an altered state of consciousness. You take away the drug, again, I'm the same person. It doesn't, because behind that, the conviction is not there. The detachment has not really happened. It's just something, a temporary clouding of the mind. It may happen through some mantra, through particular tapas. We find there are so many way of doing austerity, if that austerity is not associated with the knowledge, then sometimes we find that certain sort of detachment has come, but it won't lead you to that ultimate realization. For the time being, it gives a feeling like that I have attained something, but actually it is something which is going to again just go away. You will be again the same old self that won't speak of your kaivalya. So to warn that, this sutra starts. So now let us read the sutra. The first sutra of the 4th chapter, Kaivalya Pada. Janma, Aushadhi, Mantra, Tapa, Samadhija, Siddhaya. The Siddhi may come from Janma, by birth, as we were discussing. By birth, certain Siddhis may come. Aushadhi, by drugs. Mantra, by the repetition of some syllable. We will come to the discussion of it. Some powers may come. Tapa, through some austerity, some powers may come. And of course, Samadhi, that we have discussed, that's the genuine way. So Samadhi also it may come. As we proceed, in the sutras means you have to link up. In the 5th sutra, you will find they will say that only the mental module, which is the product of dhyana, which leads to Samadhi, that only can take away your klesha, not the others. So we have to link up, then you will find the meaning. So here, the first sutra speaks that it may come from all this. But the first 4 is not going to lead you to that ultimate liberation. It is not going to annihilate the afflictions, the kleshas. They will come back. Only dhyana, from the meditation, by being aware of your real nature, when you contemplate, and that leads to samadhi, that alone can take you away, take you off, can help you to transcend all the so-called afflictions. Janma, as we were speaking just now, there's so many mental abnormalities which sometimes finds expression as talent, like siddhi. There is a mental condition called synesthesia. It's very interesting that, as we were saying, our brain is wired up. There are so many innumerable perception centers. And as they are wired up, we get the feeling of a whole, means the wholeness. As per the perceptions are concerned, they are all piecemeal perception. When I am perceiving a red flower, very interesting. The red color is perceived in a particular part of the brain. The form is perceived in some other part of the brain. The smell, of course, is perceived by some other part of the brain. If these are all piecemeal, how do I get the idea that this is the flower which is having this smell, this is having this shape? It's because of the wiring inside the brain. As such, when I'm perceiving, they are all piecemeal perceptions. Inside the brain, this because of the wiring, they give you a sense of wholeness. Now, sometimes this wiring may go wrong. How? If for a normal person, just for an example, let us take this numerical 7. The 7, if it is red color, I will see the 7 as red color. If it is blue, I will see it as blue. If it is green, I will see it as green. But there are certain persons, whenever they see 7, invariably they will see it as a particular color. Whatever the real color may be, it may be green, it may be blue, it may be red, but that person always sees it as yellow, whatever may be its color. If it is yellow, then also it sees it as yellow. If it is red, then also it sees it as yellow. How it has happened? Just the way in our electronic circuit, sometimes the circuits get short-circuited. So in our brain, the color perception center and the digit perception center, they're very near. And somehow this color perception has got short-circuited with that particular digit. And whatever may be the digit whatever may be the color of the digit, you see, as because of the short circuit, you see that color. It's very interesting. This proves the fact what I am seeing is a projection of the mind. If we all were short-circuited in the same way, we all would have seen that 7 digit as the yellow color, and that would have been the consensus reality. We would have told that that is the reality. But for this person, what he's saying, we say is not normal. Why? Because here also the question of the vote of the majority comes. The majority of us says that it is red, he's saying it yellow, so his is false. But actually, both of us are doing the same thing. After seeing, we are projecting the colors and we are giving the reality to it. The entire reality of the world is the projection of our mind. But some mind is, as it is, not working in the way the majorities are working. So it gives some a different type of perception. Now, those who have this, this synesthesia, for them, a wonderful thing happens. It has been found that most of them had a very, prodigious memory, tremendous memory. Whenever they read something, immediately that gets as if totally registered in their mind. The fact is very interesting. These are, of course, the subjects of psychology, the psychiatry is a very vast subject, but to explain to a lay person, you will all understand what happens for such a person when he's reading a book. The book which for us is just simply in the black printed letters, it is being printed in a white page. For that person, it is all highlighted. He's seeing various colors. For memorizing what we do, in the book, we underline, we highlight. For this, his perception is such, his entire book is highlighted. That gives him that tremendous memory. He can analyze the things in a much better way, segregate the things in a much better way, and that speaks of a prodigious memory. So, just it is a siddhi, but it has happened because of some so-called abnormality in the mind. It has nothing to do with spirituality. But yes, sometimes when we see a person, because of these abnormalities, they have developed some specific skills. There are people who are going to revere them as if some spiritually illumined soul. So here yoga is saying it is just by janma, it has happened. We need not be deluded by thinking that it speaks of some supernatural power. Janma. There are so many. And so you will find that sometimes the autistic children have wonderful memory. They just, if you just say the phone number, if you have previously just seen once that whose phone number is in the list of phone numbers, immediately by saying the phone number, he will tell whose person. Everything is in their memory. There is, if you have seen the movie Rain Man, it actually speaks of that tremendous memory. But it is because of that janma. At the time of birth, because in the way the brain is constituted, that has happened. That doesn't speak that this is the capacity with which he's going to take birth again and again. It's not so. It's by janma it has happened. Aushadhi, we need not explain. The drug addiction, why it is because of either it acts as a depressant or it acts as a hallucinate. It is a hallucinate. It is just for hallucinating, or it may act as a stimulant. And that all these three speaks of this altering of your consciousness. A particular drug. Recently in India, there was a lot of scandal that those in the, that in the movies, the actors, many of them were found to be addicts. It's not because of the luxury they go for addiction. It's a very common trend throughout the world that those who have to perform, the stage performers, whether it's a musician or it's an actor, they tend to be addicts. Why, every time, it's a common human psychology. When you see that huge crowd, millions, and an expectation has grown that you are bound to perform wonderfully, that one song has made you famous. Now there's a tremendous expectation. Every time you go to the stage, there's a tremendous stage fright. And they find that these drugs can easily take him to that different world. This total crowd now is become something, they become oblivious of it. And it can transport them. And it helps them to perform without being oblivious of this, the entire crowd. Now, this is the effect of the drug. And Ramakrishna used to sing wonderfully. And in his biography, it is being mentioned. In his biography, it's being mentioned by Swami Sharadananda that whenever he used to sing in Dakshineshwar, people used to just gather around him. His voice was such a wonderful voice. And this used to transport others. And then he's writing, why that he used to sing so fully? Because he was never aware of the surroundings. He used to get so much absorbed in the thought of the divine, that all the words which were speaking of the divine, he used to get so much absorbed in it, immediately used to get transported. So now you will understand the transportation of a professional performer by resorting to the drugs, and the transportation of Ramakrishna because of his tremendous love for the divine, tremendous absorption. So as per the effect is concerned, both are same. But are they really same? So this is the thing which the Sutra is again and again trying to indicate. Oshadhi. The drugs can transport you, but it doesn't speak of your spiritual illumination. For you can again come down from it the moment that the cause of that your transportation, the drugs effect is gone, the withdrawal syndromes comes back, you are again that old person, most probably more miserable than any other person. So it takes you to the high to again throw you to the ebb, to the bottom of your psychic existence. It can lead to tremendous depression. So this Oshadhi, it can never be the sign of spiritual illumination. Just like the Janma, Oshadhi. Mantra. Yes, with mantra, you will find in our scriptures, it has been mentioned for ages together, apart from spiritual practice, many were using mantras for attaining some supernatural powers, for harming others. Now you may ask, do the mantras really work to do some dark magic, or sometimes for some good purpose? How this happens? It's very interesting. It speaks of that one mind. The mind itself has its, just like the way when you go to in your computer, you're searching the internet. Whatever you search, it comes. So all the informations are available. So in the cosmic mind, everything is there. So when you get tuned to a particular idea, you as if download it. What happens in this with the why we say that certain mantras are very powerful? You know what has happened? For ages together, resorting to those mantras with some particular goals, some were doing sadhana. The one who initialized it by his sadhana, most probably reached perfection. The same mantra is now given to his successor. When he starts meditating, this mantra itself, in which the entire spiritual journey of his guru has been encoded, you immediately as if get tuned to that mental vibrancy. It is already there, it is existing. It is just you're going to the search engine. Just, if I in the search in, just mantras are like typing the thing in a search engine. If you type something in a search engine in your internet, immediately all the data you get from it. If I just type something, just say if I want to find out that's about Melbourne, you just type Melbourne, all the data is related to information related to Melbourne. So many things will just come and crowd your computer. These mantras are like that. So many have already contributed through their spiritual journey to, they have already uploaded as if to that cosmic mind, the spiritual journey. The mantra helps us that way. The moment you seriously are trying to relate to those ideas with that word, you easily get, it's already available. the easily that it comes and it starts as if altering your psyche. You find that very easy to understand when you go to some temple or church. Most probably, you are not in a very good mental state. You're a bit depressed, or you're feeling very monotonous, bored. And most probably, some of your friend, though you were not willing, just took you to the church or to the temple or to the mosque, whatever it may be. And just going there, suddenly you find your mind have changed. The same thing, what has happened in that place, that is a specific place which is used for worship. Whoever visits there, they're uploading there their good thoughts. Those who are going there consciously, they just decide, they resolve that for some time, as long as I'm there, I will be just thinking of God. I will be just thinking of the sublime thoughts. I will just try to forget the world and be with the divine for some time. And that's the way we all enter the shrine, you enter the church, and that's the vibration there. There's a particular term for it. It's called the noosphere. Just like the atmosphere is the same atmosphere where we all breathe. When I am breathing, it is the same atmosphere which you breathe. Similarly, our thoughts are in the form of mental vibrations there, which is termed as noosphere, Noosphere. It's there. The moment you try to relate to it, just the way you enter the shrine, automatically you find your mood has changed. You go to any place of the funeral, the most beautiful place you will find. So nice garden for acres together, sprawling land, fully green. Do you ever go for an evening walk there? The moment you enter, somehow you will find your mind gets a bit depressed, because there all the person go for a particular purpose. It's only when someone or your near and dear one have died for the funeral you're going there. It's only the sad vibrations with which that place is actually permeated. You go, immediately your mind imbibes that. Even unknowingly you go, that's the thing. So though that's such a nice place, we never go for that's our evening walk or morning walk there. That's not the place. We know it's that our mind won't be very peaceful or tranquil in those places. It will be a bit depressed. So the same thing with the mantra, that same thing happens. This mantra is something which the sadhakas have practiced for ages. All the mantras which are very powerful, the old mantras like the Gayatri, for ages together, for thousands of years, so many have attained perfection through that type of mantra. So when you chant or we chant the mantras which has been chanted by many for spiritual evolution, we immediately can avail already the uploaded, that's all the spiritual aspirations, and immediately transports our mind. Yes, if it is done with that spiritual awareness, it's good. But if we are using it for some other purpose, it can modify our psyche to give us some supernatural power, but it is not going to give us the ultimate spiritual illumination. You will find that mantra is being used for so many things, for black magic, for healing others. So those things have nothing to do with the spirituality. They are also power. There's a science behind it. Many have resorted to that for that purpose. And that has created that, just the way in the internet, the way you get good things, you get the bad things. You search anything, you get there. Here also everything is available. And accordingly, it can modify your psyche, but that in no way speaks of your ultimate spiritual illumination. Then the next, the tapa. This tapasya, unless the awareness, that spiritual awareness is there, all the meaningless tapasya can give you some power, but it doesn't speak of spiritual evolution. Tapas can be two types. What's the thing? It deactivates, it has two results. It deactivates our biological alarm. And that way, we develop some power over our own psychophysical existence. To give a common example, that I take the resolution of fasting from today morning to next day morning because of Shivaratri or whatever it may be. Now how that fast I get adept in fasting. It's just actually because of the deactivating of the biological alarm system. For the first time you're fasting, you will find in the noon, when you have your lunch, the main meal, you are extremely, terribly hungry. But as you have resolved, you think, let me bear with it. But at the same time, the thought comes that most probably throughout the night, I have to suffer because of this hunger. But those who have fasted, they all know that the peak of that hunger, it starts vanishing after some time. It just starts evaporating. After some time, when the lunchtime has got, in the late afternoon, you don't feel the hunger. Actually, it's the opposite. You feel the body is light, and then you can continue with your fasting throughout the night with a light body. That's the purpose, so that I can concentrate on my worship. How it has happened. Now, all this hunger is nothing. Hunger, thirst, all these things, tiredness, is the biological alarm system. Every day during this meal time, during the noon, I have my lunch. When now the body has got so much programmed to it, the moment that time comes, immediately the biological alarm sets in. When you are delaying the gratification, the alarm system gets tired, and after some time it stops. It won't disturb you. It's almost the same way, the way we develop our willpower. The same way is almost the same way we develop our muscle power. The muscle, by just working against the weight, our muscles never grow. Actually, it's just the opposite. When I'm working against the weight, my muscle tears off. For the first time, it tears off. Someone has just was you see this was using the dumbbell using the dumbbell for say 100 times. They were flexing their muscle for 100 times with a dumbbell. And just to imitate, for the first time, I tried to do it. Only after doing 20 or 25 times, I find the muscle has started developing cramp, and I cannot do. I leave the dumbbell, and there's a terrible pain. After a few days, when I go back to the gym, I find now I can easily do 40 times, 50 times. My strength has already increased. And I think most probably it is the flexing of the muscle previous day has strengthened my muscle. Actually, it's not. It's just the opposite. It actually has torn off your muscles. The muscle cells got damaged when you try to overdo. Now, when you are healing, the same feedback mechanism of the body, that feedback mechanism told that this part of your body is now used more. If you just regrow the cells, muscle cells, exactly the same amount as it was there, it cannot cope up. So build more. So it's just the feedback with which you grow the muscle. Similarly, feedback also grows your willpower. I'm hungry. You're not resorting to the food. The feedback mechanism says, useless to give this biological alarm. He's not going to yield to it. It stops. So that's how the tapa helps us to develop some capacity over our body mind. So now I can fast for 2 days, 3 days. That doesn't mean that I have really developed spiritually. If I have used that fasting, that I will meditate, that I don't want to feel the body, and meditation was the real aim. Of course, this type of tapas is going to help. But even those who don't have the inclination for meditation, just others are fasting, let me fast. They also will develop the capacity. But that doesn't mean he is spiritually getting illumined. So these are the warnings. Very nice. These sutras are, that's why, very important. The last is the samadhi. This is the only one. If we do not get hoodwinked by all the siddhis which comes as the side effect, then this is the only one which can lead us to that state of kaivalya. So this samadhi, we have already described in the 3rd chapter, that how it leads to some supernatural powers like pratibha. We will again give a short hint to it, that how samadhi can just hoodwink us and keep us restricted, just sideline us by getting lured to some supernatural powers, and may not enable us to progress spiritually. But if we are aware of this our ultimate goal, this samadhi is the only thing that can take us beyond all the afflictions. So we will take up from this the last thing which has been mentioned in the first sutra in the next class, and before we proceed to the second sutra. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.